Hello and welcome to Talk from Superheroes. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Ivemy.
And I'm Diana McCullum.
And you're listening to Talk from Superheroes, where every week we discuss a piece of superhero television or film. And this week on the podcast, we are talking about Season 1 of the new Netflix original, Jupiter's Legacy.
I believe it is Volume 1 for some reason.
It's Volume 1. They call this a volume,
It's got a V instead of an S in front of it.
Really?
I think because the comics are in volumes.
And
that's all the information I have.
Just terrific.
I'm coming in hot.
Yeah. My sarcastic just terrific was towards the show and not you in this moment just now. Because, yes, comic books are called in volumes. TV shows are called seasons. Get over it. We're talking about Season 1, Volume 1 of Jupiter's Legacy on Netflix. It's a new show, so we're going to be talking about that. We're going to give you a spoiler-free review in case you're on the fence about watching it, or you want like a little taste of the episode before you're fully caught up. And then once you hear the theme song sound, that's when we're going to get into the spoiler-filled section. So spoiler warning once we get there. Yes.
Shall we?
Yes. Let's shall.
Ask me the question.
Spoiler-free review. Diana, did you like it?
No. Thanks for coming to this show.
Bye.
Bye. No, it's very bad. It's a very, very bad show. It's incredibly boring. It's super slow paced. The performances are nothing. The flashbacks are so long. Oh my goodness. There is just episode 3 is crazy good, and then the rest of the show, I don't know what happened. It is wildly inconsistent. It's got nothing to say. The action's not great. I like the costumes, and that's about it. And I like the characters from episode 3. If you want to just watch one episode, I don't know. It probably doesn't make sense on its own. But yeah, it's wildly boring and not incoherent. I know what's happening, but just like they have nothing to say, and no one is interesting. So that's me, Andrew. Andrew, how you feeling?
It's miserable. It is just miserable. It makes me sad watching it, and not in a way to be like, that's the emotion you intend to provoke. It's cheap. It's very cheaply made. Like, it looks poor. Some of the costumes aren't bad, I will say that. But for the most part, the show looks cheap and made cheaply. And
the actors seem sad.
The actors seem sad. Everything feels like the budget was slashed last minute. It looks cheap and it feels sad about it. They're not doing the most with the limited budget that they have. You know, it's not efficiently made either. So it's cheap. It is poorly paced. It's slow. It's a little preachy because it's basically just a Bible story, and we'll get more into that into the episode. But it's very openly religious. In a way that makes me uncomfortable. So I don't care for that. And yes, slow pacing. I think there's a couple of good performances. Like, there are positives hidden in this show. There are the costumes. There are maybe 2 performances that I really like. And there's a handful of things that I don't hate throughout this.
I will give it. I've got a few positives as well, but they definitely do not come close to outweighing the negatives. But like some characters aren't developed. Some characters are just miserable to watch. But some characters are really fun and pop.
Yeah. And
you're so desperate for them not to leave the show when they're there.
Absolutely. Like you mentioned, episode 3 being the best one. It's the only one that feels like it has money. It's made efficiently. It's the best directed. It has and showcases the best performer of the show as well. So yeah, episode 3 almost gave me hope.
Because it's so early, and because the first 2 episodes were directed by the same guy. And then we got to episode 3 and we're like, oh, maybe that one director, the showrunner, actually Stephen S. DeKnight, is holding the show back. But then it never reached the levels of 3 again.
No. All around, just a pretty unlikable show, I would say.
Yeah, there was no joy to watch this except for when like my favorite characters were there, which there are 2 of.
Yeah.
So
and
for a show with about 30 characters,
yeah,
there should be more than 2 that I like.
And for a show that has nothing to say is the other thing that's really depressing about it, is that like they're doing a lot of comic book tropes. You know, they're doing a lot of things that we've seen in other properties before, and they have nothing new to add about it. And in fact, might even have less to say than other movies and shows that have already trodden this ground as well. So it has less to say about things that are already done.
Yeah, it pretends like it has a lot to say. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the day, you're just like, you haven't said anything. You you haven't made me think about anything in an interesting way. You haven't come up with any, like, no one's arguing your point.
Right.
I don't know how else to get into it without spoilers, but we can get into it more about how they...
It has the level of commentary on superheroes of if you found someone in this world, which would be hard-pressed to do, who had never read a comic or seen a comic book movie or even heard of the concept of a superhero before, and they read one Superman comic book, and then they had questions. Like moral, like if you that person then wrote a comic book and series of their own. It's that level of like very surface to be like, but if one person had all that power, would they like, could they just rule everything? Like a very surface level shit and just scratching it and not really anything deeper.
Yeah, not getting into that deep, good stuff that feels like I don't know if they want to get into or just don't have anything else to say, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be a not recommend for me.
Yeah, big not recommend. I think we're going to have one big disagreement in this episode. There's one thing that I enjoy that I think you very much did not.
Oh, boy. Excited about that.
But other than that, it's just a huge not recommend. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I guess can it be spoiled?
No, question mark.
It would be hard because you don't know these characters. So if I told you a spoiler right now, you'd be like, okay.
Yeah, and I think other than the final episode, like the final end of the season, last little twist, I don't think there's any real twists here.
No.
Because it's a show where their entire structure is it takes place, it has scenes that take place in modern day, in the present, and take place in the 1930s as well. But you know how, to a certain degree, you know how the 1930s flashbacks are going to end. It's going to end with all of them becoming superheroes because you've already seen that. So it has spoiled itself in its own narrative devices as well, which make it kind of boring and uninteresting also. So I don't think it can be spoiled because its very premise is we've spoiled a thing for you. How did they get there? And other than that last little end of the season, and even then it's just like a kiss of a twist. That's it.
Just a little touch of a twist.
Just a little English on the
it.
bowl. Just barely in there. So I don't really think it can be spoiled for you.
Not especially.
No. All right. Well, that's the quick spoiler-free review. Before we get into the spoiler-filled section, we want to thank our wonderful sponsor of today's episode. They are our good friends over at tpublic.com.
tpublic.com. It's a high recommend from me. You're going to want to get a t-shirt or a tank top or a hoodie or some other piece of clothing or accoutrement with the designs from tpublic.com because they're indie designs made by indie artists and they're real sweet.
Yeah, they're fantastic designs, and the independent artists who made them are all getting commissions for their work as well, which I think is a very important thing. So you're going to get something unique to you. And as Diana mentioned, if you're not, don't let the name fool you. If you're not in the market for clothing, you can get cell phone cases, laptop cases, pillows, wall art, masks as well. There's a lot of different options. And some of the cool independent designs they have, like one that I want to bring up this week, it's one for this show, and it is You Old Plate of Soup.
Oh, you old plate of soup.
You old plate of soup, you. It's something that I've said for a long time on the show. It is a turn of phrase that I think The Tick was the first one that really made me lose my mind on it. But you old plate of soup, it's a plate of soup. It is a fun design, and I want to give a shout out to Hawkeye over on Twitter who tweeted at us that they bought the plate of soup shirt and were recently in an airport. And someone in an airport in the U.S. and someone from Germany saw the plate of soup shirt and was like, "Talk from superheroes?" And I love hearing that. That is amazing. Like, it doesn't even say talk from superheroes. It is an esoteric, you old plate of soup shirt. It's just fun and playful on its own. And someone from a different country was like, "Hey, we're buddies now."
We're bringing people together from all around the world. The unifying force of Talk from Superheroes plus tpublic.com. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful thing.
The old plate of soup.
You guys are all plates of soup. My shirt this week is, I think you should have gone second because my shirt is just a Ninja Turtle shirt that I like. I was feeling Ninja Turtle-y.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. It's called Turtle Power. It's all four of their heads like on one shell, and then all their weapons are crisscrossed in a cool way to make like one big design. I love it. I like the Ninja Turtles. They're fun guys. It's a shirt I wouldn't find anywhere but tpublic.com. I think you'll like it too.
Absolutely. And if you like either of those designs or want to see the other ones that we've enjoyed ourselves, check out our TeePublic store at teepublic.fromsuperheroes.com. That is teepublic.fromsuperheroes.com. And when you shop through that store link, not only do you support the independent artist who created the design, but you also directly support this show as well. teepublic.fromsuperheroes.com. And thank you, TeePublic, for your support.
Thank you so much, TeePublic.
And now let's get into the spoiler-filled section of the episode. Let's talk and maybe dunk on Jupiter's Legacy.
Buckets.
WIGS. Oh boy, we've seen some WIGS.
Oh boy. I feel like it's been a while since we had to slog through something.
Yeah, since we were like, we need to watch this for the podcast. Oh God, let's just get it done.
Yeah.
Let's just get this over
It's
with.
been a while since we struggled through. I mean, it's easier with a show for it to be a struggle. A movie's over in 2 hours, no matter what.
Yeah.
Unless you're
a movie,
unless
hit
you're
maybe
Snyder Cut.
You hit that halfway wall maybe on a movie, but you're like, we're already here, we're doing it, let's finish this.
We got popcorn. We're settled in.
But when you got to leave and come back another day and choose to hit that play button again, it starts to hurt a bit.
It's painful. You got to choose to see these wigs again.
Let's just start right off.
You can't hold back on the
No,
wig.
I can't. Let's get it out of the way right away. There is some good stuff about this show. The wardrobe and costume department, kudos. Let's do a quick positive here. The wardrobe is impeccable. I love the superhero costumes, and even aside from the superhero costumes, all the period piece clothing that they're wearing, everyone looks fucking incredible. Gorgeous looks top to bottom.
Costume department did a great job. I especially love Josh Duhamel and Leslie Bibb's outfits, costumes. Leslie Bibb's is this really cool, it feels like 1930s inspired. It looks like she's wearing the Empire State Building in a weird way, but in a cool way. Not like a costume of the Empire State Building, but inspired by the look. And then his is just really cool. The way the symbol holds the cape on. Yeah, their costumes are pretty cool across the board for everyone.
Brainwaves is my favorite, actually.
I can't even really picture Brainwaves.
Brainwaves kind of looks like the more timeless of them. Just kind of like this deep, dark blue kind of a look. And it's got a texture to it, which gives it a little bit more life. Superhero costumes are incredible. And all of the clothing in the period 1930 stuff is great. The amount of looks and suits where I'm like, anytime that I saw George Hutch, played by Matt Lanter, in the 30s, every time I saw him, I was like, I need to start wearing more jewelry. Because his is a whole ass look of these pure white suits. A lot of white, a lot of just bright, clean colors, which you don't really see in 1930s New York period stuff. It's more of a southern seersucker suit kind of look, but it's a heavy wool and just a lot of gold, and he's wearing rings and bracelets and necklaces. And
but it's not too much.
It's not gaudy. It is not gaudy. And every time I saw him, I'm like, I want to ring to socks wear everything that he's wearing. It looks incredible.
Yeah, they did a great job with him, especially of being because he's the only one who gets those kind of bright suits of being this is a very lighthearted man. He finds joy in life. He's very carefree because he's always playing his lighthearted music. He's having a good time. He's the one who's just having fun. And they really showcase that through the fact that he doesn't just wear brown or black suits like everyone else.
Yeah.
He's out there having a joy of a time, and his clothing is also joy.
Yeah.
George was great.
Fucking love his look. So
and this just the work of doing anything period related. Every extra has to have a period costume, and they all looked impeccable.
Yeah, absolutely. Top to bottom, impeccable. Kudos to wardrobe and costume for doing some of the best work on a superhero TV show that one could imagine.
From the neck down.
And then getting completely overshadowed by a hair and makeup department who should, frankly, be unemployable. They should all go to jail and never be allowed to work in film or television again.
This is where we're going to diverge just a little, because I only think Josh Duhamel looks bad.
Wow.
I do. I think Brainwave looks pretty good because he got a tight beard, and I think that tight beard looks a little better, and he's got short hair. I think Brainwave looks pretty good. We are very divided, I think, on Leslie Bibb's wig. I think it looks fine.
Now, I think that she looks miserable. In a still image, Leslie Bibb, who plays Lady Liberty,
Grace the mom, in a still photo, her wig is fine. I will say that she has one of the better wigs, and it works in a still photo. But why it's all miserable top to bottom is that the wigs just are so cheap and plasticky. They do not move or react to environments or what they're doing. Like, there are points where they're like flying forward and punching, and like there's clearly a wind machine because like their clothing flaps, but the wig does nothing. The wig never gets moved behind their ears. It looks miserable. I agree with you that the Utopian looks the worst. I agree with you, he looks the worst. But then there's other characters who have wigs who in no way need it. Like the daughter, Chloe. That is also one of the most miserable wigs I've seen on television. Is she wearing a wig? I thought she had a bad haircut. I didn't like her hair, but I thought it was real hair.
Oh, that is a wig. And why? Just whatever that actress's hair is, if she doesn't want to change it, that's the haircut of this character.
Well, she does have the exact hair as the comics. So I don't know if they were just being slaves to the comics, but she has that short model look in the comics.
And this leads to, not only is the execution of all the wigs and makeup pretty terrible, this leads me to, I think, a bigger problem with the show of why everyone has these terrible wigs, which is that no one came anywhere close to making a functional creative decision. Like, it was like, here's what she looks like in the comics. The actress doesn't want to cut her hair into that bob. We'll throw her in a wig. And there was never a conversation of like, does this character thematically need to have this haircut?
Have we discussed short hair on Chloe as being like a character trait, or like, can models not have long hair? They can.
They can. So there's no why. In the comic, yes, maybe these characters look like that, and the wig and the gray hair and the beards look a little bit better. But why? Do we absolutely need it to show anything? Does it tell anything? Does it have a theme? And if not, why are we making the show look worse? We're like, as a production, it is spending more time and money and energy to make it look worse for something they haven't thought through. And Chloe is just a great example of that. There is no reason that this character, it's not like, oh, it doesn't work with long hair. Just let the actress have the hair the actress has.
I mean, the character doesn't work, but it's not because of the wig. Now, I want to get back to earlier wig conversation, because you were talking about how it doesn't move. And this I will agree with, even though I only think Josh Duhamel looks bad, about the movement. You're totally right, because they clearly can't style the wigs in any style other than how they came.
Yeah.
Because even no matter what situation he's in, and also the wife, their hair is the exact same. And Grace's hair can kind of look that way no matter what, but his hair is the same when he's working on the farm and when he's attending a funeral. You'd pull it into a ponytail, you'd brush it, you would straighten it out. Like, you wouldn't wear your gross, half curly, dirty hair to a funeral.
You would comb it back a little.
But this is the only way this wig can work. And I think it is a huge contrast to, I would say, probably a good wig, which was Henry Cavill's in The Witcher, which is the same color. He wore it in about 5 different styles. He wore it in a bathtub. Like, he could wear it any different way he wanted because it looked like his real hair and it moved and it's styled. So yeah, these are stuck completely in how they were put on the head.
Well, I think they just have one wig, which is the problem.
Oh, God.
For each character.
Wigs are expensive.
These aren't, but they only have one wig. And to have wigs work, you're right. Like, normal humans have different looks for different events and moments, even if it's subtle. Like, you know, even if you have short hair. Like, I have relatively short hair, and my hair looks different when I just woke up or came from the gym or am going to a funeral. And he has long hair and it doesn't. But most productions, if it's a good production and hair and makeup's doing things right, you have like 7 different wigs. And you start with the same wig, but then it's like you've got day wig, night wig, wake up wig, gym wig, formal wig. Like, you have that character in different versions, and they don't have that, and it's so noticeable and miserable.
It is. The lack of movement, I think, bothers me more than the look. You're right. As a still photo, they don't look bad. But then the second they start fighting or they're going to different events, you're like, you look the exact same everywhere you go, and it's miserable. Josh Duhamel, who I haven't seen in much. I kind of thought I did, but I think he's Timothy Oliphant a lot of the time.
Fair enough. They've got similar energies. They get compared a lot, for sure.
Josh Duhamel is just so boring in this whole thing. And he seems miserable. And I'm like, I don't know if your character's miserable. You do seem more alive in the past when you weren't wearing a wig. Your character is much more energized.
All of the actors.
Oh,
every single actor in the past is having a terrific time, with the exception of Leslie Bibb, who is still in a second wig in the past. So they've never allowed, like, the female actors have never been allowed to use their regular hair. For some reason, I don't know why, but they're like, these are the haircuts in the comic. The female actors are not allowed to use their human hair. We need to have comic book accurate wigs on these people.
And yes, there are only 2 female actresses.
And the two
pretty much in this.
The
I
two
mean, there's
female
like
characters.
2 others who like come and go a little bit, like the Flair's daughter and is there a 4th lady? Oh, Walt's daughter.
Yeah.
So 4 ladies out of like 30 people. And then for real hair that looks terrible, Paragon, what are you doing? The sun?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, this shaggy dog. Like, you can't even see his eyes in the final scene with his dad where they're talking about whether you can kill Blackstar or not. His eyes are completely covered by his very natural, actual hair. And in some ways it's gorgeous, but it's so bad looking when he fights because he can't see.
This is why the people who did hair need to never work again, because it's not just they got a good hair department and they weren't used to working with wigs. Like, top to bottom, human hair, they fucked up. They made everything look just wet and lifeless and miserable. And I know that it's now like 10 minutes into the podcast and we've only talked about hair, but that's how fucked up this hair is.
It's memorable. Like, when in 6 months, when I forget the plot of this movie, I will remember the hair.
I will never forget the hair.
Never.
Never.
Damn. Andrew is stuck with this for the rest of his life.
Yes. And again, to go to the thematic thing, there's no reason for it. So in the comics, it's used to show that they're older.
Yes.
Which is an insane thing to do, because one is set in the 30s, in the 1930s, and one section of the show and story is set in present day. And every other visual indicator tells you that. Like, at no point did I find myself in a scene wondering what year it is and searching for someone's hair or beard to tell me. Because, like, an old Model T Ford will drive by and its horn will go, auga, and I'm never just like, I don't know what year it is.
Also, the perspective changes.
Yes.
They put black bars on.
The aspect ratio of the show changes depending on the decade. The color palette and, like, the filters they use and the lighting, everything changes. And it's to show time has passed, but also these characters now are almost like 100 years old. Mm-hmm. And they don't look 100 is the idea, because they're gods. They have superpowers. So they could, in canon reasons, look exactly the same. We could just let the actors act. Just let the actors act. Let Josh Duhamel not wear a wig, not wear a beard. Don't gray him up. He's a fucking god. Just let him be a man in 2021 walking around talking to his son.
Or gray them up reasonably. Like, dye Josh Duhamel's real hair.
Yes.
Let him look like a person. Like, let him grow a real beard in and spray a little stuff on it. I don't know. Or no beard. I don't need a beard.
Yeah.
A beard to me doesn't say you're an old man, because I don't see a lot of old men with beards. That to me isn't a trigger of old. Yeah. That's a very, like, Chris Evans thing to me. That's a young man's game.
That's a thing young people do.
That's a young man's game now.
Yeah, like, people from the 30s maybe had mustaches, but beards were considered, like, a homeless thing to, like, people who had jobs didn't have beards until, like, the 60s at least. Mm-hmm. It is not a thing that they did.
Yeah, so you could just, like, give them, like, some eye wrinkles, a little bit of gray. You don't need to go all in. But we should move on to something else.
Sure, let's move on to something else.
Let's be positive for a minute.
I was thinking we should take a little positivity break.
Fucking loved episode 3.
3 is perfect.
3 is a perfect,
or near perfect, yeah.
Perfect example of it. To me, it felt like when Daredevil does an episode all about Kingpin. Like, literally just Kingpin. Because this was the episode about Hutch and George, who are the 2 villains of the show.
Yeah.
We never really get to see George be villainous. We're told he eventually betrays them, but, he's a villain in name, at least. And this episode is so good. Hutch is incredible. I love this guy. What's your name? What's your actor name? Ian Quinlan.
Ian Quinlan.
Fucking steals the screen. He's so charming. He's so interesting. But his story is also told the best.
Yeah.
Because him and George have the only stories that are told, other than Sheldon, that are told from their point of view.
Okay.
Because everyone else will get an episode, like they'll be like, this is the Grace episode, and you see Grace in the past, you see Grace in the current day. But those episodes are still told through the Utopian's point of view. It's just a lot more about Grace. Like it'll be like Sheldon's getting Grace to join the crew. But the episode is from Sheldon's point of view trying to get Grace. We don't follow...
She stops existing when he leaves the room.
Yeah, we don't follow Grace getting fired. We don't follow Grace meeting Sheldon. But episode 3 is from George's point of view in the past, and it's from Hutch's point of view in the current day.
Right.
And he interacts with people, and they disappear when he doesn't see them. And no other episode does this. Every other episode is all from the Utopian's perspective.
Yeah.
And these people are walking in and out of his life. So episode 3 is just filmed better. It moves along. Every character feels fully developed. Even like Hutch's crew feels more developed than characters I see for 8 whole episodes. I don't know what happened to episode 3. It's phenomenal.
And it feels like they had infinitely more time to film it. Not only is it the best written in everything you're describing, it gives you an actual new a sense of a character and a POV and a voice, and you feel like you know these people. It's better from a writing perspective. And from a production perspective, it feels like it had infinitely more time. It's more carefully made. It's better filmed. The camera angles are better. They introduced entirely new features and concepts to the show. Like when it goes from the past to the present, the aspect ratio changes. So I'm trying to remember if it's this or vice versa, but in the past, I think it's full screen, 16 by 9. It's widescreen. It's 16 by 9. It fits the full television. And then present day, it is letterboxed, 1:4 film perspective. And in episode 1 and 2, it would just switch. It would just hard cut from the past to present, and the aspect ratio would change. Episode 3, the black bars start fading and sliding in, and they actually made a style out of it, and they would do what are called match cuts. So it would be like, I can't remember the exact examples, but a shot in the past, it would end on the wheel of a car. And then it would cut to present day, and it would be the wheel of a car at a new location in present day. So just these little things where from a script perspective, they knew what they were doing. And from a production perspective, they're like, okay, we know the order of these scenes. We need to get an insert shot of a car wheel. Now we're cutting to the future, car wheel. The future shot, it's going to end on a pocket watch. Cut back to the past, first shot is on a pocket watch. And just these little fluid things that they do to make everything seem smooth. And it makes everything seem smooth and much peppier and faster paced, too.
And you really feel the parallel of the story. And then that's maybe one of the only reveals in the show is that George is his dad. And you're like, oh, this is why these stories were being paralleled the whole episode. Oh, my God, this was good storytelling for an entire hour.
They thought it out.
They framed this story and they told it on its own. And like, you really feel for George and get to know him so well. And you really get a feel for Hutch, who I think is so interesting, is like a bad guy who's a good guy who like doesn't want to be too bad. He's like, I don't want to have to kill Big Man, so I'm gonna go do this heisty thing, and then he won't kill my friends. When he's like, but I failed the heisty thing, so now I have to kill Big Man, so he won't kill my friends. Like,
right.
He's got levels of good and evil in him that are very interesting to me. I really like Hutch. And honestly, the guy without the powers and just the stick, most interesting guy in the thing.
Oh, absolutely.
When he just teleports it into Big Man's heart to kill him from anywhere on the globe.
Yeah.
Coolest use of powers in the entire show by far.
Yeah, absolutely.
No one else has a cool power. Mm-hmm. This is so cool.
It reminded me of, like, there's some good writing in, I can't remember if it was a Daredevil villain. There was a Marvel comic book villain who could only, like, teleport liquid.
Okay.
And their big like thing is that they were like killing off people by teleporting heroin into the hearts and making it look like an overdose.
You've told me about this guy. I think it was Spider-Man.
I think it was a weirdly dark Spider-Man thing. And then there was the British television show Misfits.
The cheese one.
It was a guy who could control milk, which then transferred to cheese, and he almost killed an immortal character because they ate pizza that day. So just like taking lame-ish powers and then moving it around is interesting. And also, like you mentioned, Ian Quinlan, who plays Hutch, and Matt Lanter, who plays George Hutch, his father, are the two best actors on the show.
Yay!
They light up the screen.
I'm so glad you agree because I came in as a Matt Lanter fan. I was like, I hope Andrew ends up liking Matt Lanter. I think he's very good. So I'm really glad you like him as well because I thought he was great as George.
Yeah.
Like, this is how you know someone has told a good story. George is very, very rich. He's incredibly rich. We meet him and he has 99 eggs boiled a day and he only eats one because he needs to know depending on which kind of egg he feels like. He's so, so rich. At the end of the episode, he's only a little bit rich and he only has one butler who's only boiled one egg. And I still feel bad for him, even though he's still a rich guy with a butler. I'm like, oh no, he used to have 99 eggs. And to make me feel any sympathy for a man who has lost 98 eggs and still has so much money is very impressive. Because it's a thing I don't feel for any other character throughout the show who loses money.
Yeah.
Because like Walt and Sheldon will constantly be like, life is so hard, we had to work so hard. And I'm like, you're rich white guys from the 1920s, you did not.
Yeah.
You didn't have to work hard for any of it. I guarantee you. I feel no sympathy for you.
The Depression was bad, but you got hit the least.
Yeah.
You sold some of your properties.
Yeah, when it cuts to the two black guys who lost their jobs and absolutely will not be getting any jobs for years and years, you're like, no, guys, you're fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then just even adding a little humanity to George's character of like when he loses the money. And this felt like a very almost like Marvel MCU thing to do. Like he loses money and they write in this little moment of him talking to his one butler that's left. And he's just like, was everyone taken care of? Did everyone get their severance? But he's doing that behind the scenes. Like no one ever sees this. So it just adds a little humanity to his character to be like, he is rich and he still takes care of people. It made him a very like a Bruce Wayne-y type figure to be like, the people who work for my company are taken care of. Like I am filthy rich, but I spread it around. And I think the egg scene was a really interesting one because I think it shows that he doesn't really give a shit, but he was putting on airs. So it almost feels very Bruce Wayne-y as well to be like, I'm putting on an act. It's a show that I put on for other people. And when he's alone, he's not sad because he only has one egg. He has this moment where he's choking back emotion because his one friend in the world does know him and know what he wants. And he's sad that friend is leaving. Like that's what he's not sad about the eggs, he's sad about the friend. So it's just the richest writing all around. And he performs it with that depth. And between Matt Lanter's performance as George and Ian Quinlan's performance as I think just Hutch. I don't know if he has that actual first name, but George's son. Both of their performances, both in writing and performance, feel like the only characters and actors who were able to improvise because they're the only ones who have an understanding of that character. And part of that is on the writing. Like at no point do I think Josh Duhamel was able to improv a utopian line.
No.
Like if the printer ran out of ink, like if a line didn't finish in the copy of the script you gave Josh Duhamel, there's no way he could guess how it ends or improv that ending of a sentence. Like if a word is missing from the script, he's just not saying that word. It's like it's Ron Burgundy Anchorman type shit. Like whatever's printed is being said. And I feel like that's true of all of the characters because of A, poor and stiff writing, and B, the actors sometimes doing their best but not really knowing who these people are. But both Hutches are so rich and well, I think, understood by the writers and the actors portraying them that if you didn't give them their lines, they could still fill in how this character would act in this scene. If you just gave them context, they could fill in who this is.
Yeah, both actors have an ease and comfort level in their performance that shows that like they're not worried about this, where everyone else can feel very stiff. And not I'm saying everyone else is a bad actor, but I think everyone else doesn't know who their characters are.
Yeah.
And these two got an entire episode, or at least they each got half an episode, and they were able to be like, I know exactly who this guy is. We figured it out. And I think that goes to what I said before about how the other characters don't get a POV. Like you said, George's nicest moment is when he's alone, making sure his staff is taken care of. We never get a moment of Walt alone, or Grace alone, or who's the Flair? Fitz alone.
Sure.
Like these people only exist through Sheldon's perspective. So we don't get to know them except outside of the Utopians' view of them.
Right.
But George and Hutch got these fully fleshed episodes, which were if the rest of the show had been anywhere near this, it would have been so good.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened this one episode.
Because in episode 2, I think the only time we get something outside of the perspective of the utopian family is one scene in episode 2 between Fitz Small and his daughter, Petra Small, in like the Hall of Justice. So it's the guy in the wheelchair and his daughter. And at that point, it just happens mid-episode. We didn't know those characters' names. Like, they're having this big emotional, like, can you believe what happened? This is what I've always wanted from you. And I don't know if there was deleted scenes or what, but Diane and I actually looked at one another and were like, who the fuck are these people? We didn't know their names or their powers or who they were or what they were referencing. It was all just gobbledygook. And that's the only other time I can think, though, where we got a peek into other characters' lives. And it was literally gibberish to us.
Yeah, it didn't mean anything. I mean, the entire show had that problem, though. Like, even in the scene before when they're fighting Black Star, 3 heroes died. And we were like, who were any of them?
Yeah.
Was that the guy Brandon was talking to earlier? It happened too fast. Like, they didn't establish anyone. They didn't tell us anyone's name. They very much treated us like we lived in the world of the heroes and just, they're like, you know who these guys are. We're like, we don't.
You know Flim Flam? Oh no, Flim Flam's dead.
Oh, not Flim Flam 2. Flim Flam again.
Like, what? What is happening?
One of you is named Barnabas.
You need to establish things.
Nothing is established.
Nothing.
Oh, the only thing established is, God damn it, these flashbacks are so long.
That brings me to my next point. I think this is the thing that we're going to disagree on the most. I love the flashbacks, and honestly, I would like this show a bit more. I'm not going to say I would love this show, but I think I would be entertained by this show if it were just the flashbacks.
Ooh, because then you wouldn't get present day and you didn't know where it's going?
You don't know where it's going. I think if it was just the flashbacks, hear me out. Here's why I think the flashbacks are the best part and would be so much more interesting on their own. I think it's unique and a superhero story that hasn't been told. I think the Great Depression is a weird and very specific era to set a superhero in. Normally, when you go back that age, you find superhero origins in World War I and World War II, and you skip over the Great Depression. You get like rah patriotism fighters, and not we're failing, oh God, Americans are hungry, fuck. I think that is a very unique and interesting place to put a superhero origin story out of like desperation and fear and in the darkest night of a nation and not in its right before its greatest triumph. I love that as an era, and I think that that is interesting and has something new to say. And I like a crazy person leading his friends to this and just this like, I'm seeing visions, can I be believed or not? And if you didn't know he could, that would be a fun show where people would be like, I don't know, I think it's legit. I think they should be following him. And then when you have a moment where like the brother sees the vision and like that show, you would be like, holy shit, that vision is legit real. And then like, where does that go? That almost feels like superhero Lost as a period piece.
Oh, it definitely turned into superhero Lost. And I know you loved Lost.
Yeah, up until the end. Like there are aspects of Lost that I'm still very fond of, but I think it is very, all of the characters feel more fleshed out. I understand why they're all in this together. The psychosis of the utopian of, I forget his real name.
Sheldon.
The psychosis of Sheldon bonding everyone in his life together with a purpose. It feels the most driven as well to be like, I know why everyone is here. Everyone is here because they're worried about you. I know why everyone is in any room at any given time doing any of the things. It's just a very driven and original story.
I will half agree with you. I think the setting is great. I think the show is much more interesting and alive when it's in the flashbacks. I think the Depression is interesting in its own way. I think it just takes too damn long for it to get moving. And none of it, and it doesn't make sense. I think once they actually get on like the boat, once they actually get going and they're like getting to the island, doing island shit, I think it's more interesting. But it's so much of just like, why did he even get touched and start going insane? There's no inciting incident of anything supernatural. It's just his dad died and then he got visions and there's nothing connecting this. And then he just goes off on his own, and then he comes back and he goes off again, and like it takes so long to get the crew together. It was so long for me, and it was nothing. I'm like, we know they all join you. They all got powers. Like, please get to the boat. Like, the comic starts with them on the boat.
Wow, okay.
And you don't get any of this dad vision. You don't get any of this stuff. They're just like, yeah, we believe him and we're all on a boat and let's do the island stuff. And I think that's all this needed. Like going to Kansas, walking through a desert for some reason. Kansas became a desert in the 30s, I guess.
They went a little, as much as I think the Great Depression is an interesting place to set it in, they went a little overboard with how extreme it was.
You know how crops turned to dust?
It did turn it into it turned the Great Depression into Mad Max, where they're like, it is a wasteland. Crops stopped growing, everything's a desert, and there are cars on the side of the road where people are like fighting off strangers to get away from their broken down vehicles. And I get that things were very rough. And, just anecdotally and just reading, I know that things were rough. I can only imagine. But I don't think crops dried up, turned to dust, and it turned into a Mad Max Thunderdome wasteland. When the one that I found fucking hilarious was when they had the food line. And it was like, line up here. Like, Josh Duhamel's dying of thirst. And they still had water. They still had water in the Depression.
I don't think there was a drought.
Yeah.
There was a money drought.
Yeah.
I don't think there was
a
water
still
drought.
Water. So Josh Duhamel's dying of thirst. And there's like the food line. And the guy who's boarding up his shop that's gone under, Josh Duhamel's like, you got a phone? And he's like, get away from me, you weird bum. Dude, things aren't going good for you. What are you talking about? Like, the dude who's yelling at him for being a bum is boarding up windows of a closed shop.
What do you have that could be stolen, sir?
And in the Great Depression, within a week, everything is coated in dust. I don't know how it got so dusty so quick, but like every phone and book is coated in a thick 2-inch layer of dust.
Yeah.
Like nothing's been used.
The show seems to think when the stock market crashed, it's like a meteor hit America and covered it in soot.
Everything's coated
Like,
in soot and
it
dust.
took it very literally when it was a metaphorical, imaginary economy problem. Not imaginary, but the economy's not real, so I don't fucking believe in it. That's a different conversation.
That's a different thing. But the food line, so they're like giving out bread, which was a thing. There would be food lines for the poor, and they would give out loaves of bread. And it breaks into such anarchy that everyone starts fist fighting over the bread and jamming bread down their shirts, and everyone's getting beat up, and it's just turning into a mob brawl because everyone wants bread. And they're acting like there's not going to be enough bread for everyone. And the dust settles and everyone's running away, and there's still bread left. So it's like they all just beat each other up for fun. Like they treated the Great Depression like a fun purge. Like everyone's just doing a crime, not because they need to for any given reason. I don't know what they thought was the Depression was. It's weird, but it is an interesting place to set this. And I do think what you're saying of like it moves too slow. It moves too slow because it takes the full 8 episodes of the season, which is a slow-moving season as a whole, and paces out these flashbacks. I honestly think if a show like this started, and I would like it entirely set during this era, but if there were 3 episodes, because I think there's maybe 2 to 3 episodes of flashback content.
I would say, yeah.
I think 3 episodes of the 1930s is not a terrible way to start a show and then jump to present day. I don't think 3 episodes is too slow to tell a superhero origin story.
I could maybe see it. I think it still took him too long to like do everything. Like, cause he goes crazy. He talks to George, and then he's not crazy anymore. Oh, but now he's crazy. Now he's in Kansas. Oh, he comes back to New York. Like, there was just so many steps. Like, he had to go all the way to Kansas to get like coordinates he could have just seen in his vision. Not that Red didn't give a good performance. Red crushed
Also
it.
stole the show.
Red
from that 70s show stole it.
He did a great job, but I just don't think
Red
we
and
needed
Kitty
it.
from that 70s show are having a hot time right now for streaming superhero proproperties.
Yeah, if you don't remember, she was 3rd billed on WandaVision.
On WandaVision, she was doing quite well. I have a question about Red.
Okay.
Just like story-wise in canon, I don't quite understand it. The guy they rescued in the water in the flashback. I forget that character's name.
I think Fitch or Richard Conrad.
Conrad. Fitz was the
the
Fitz
guy
was
from
the bad guy. Yeah.
from the mill.
Yes. Yeah. He was from the mill.
So Richard Conrad.
Richard Conrad. Was Conrad Red?
No.
I thought they were implying that he was the same person time traveled.
What? I didn't get that impression in any way.
Well,
why?
because I think that's why because they don't mention him at all in present day. Like, they talk about how Sky Fox betrayed them, but they don't mention why he's missing.
They never talk about that guy.
And why Sky Fox's kid has the teleportation stick that they show him with later. I think he can teleport through space and time, and the implication is that that crazy farmer is him. I thought that's what they were doing, because when they fish him out of the sea, Josh Duhamel's character is like listening to him tell the speech, and he describes it exactly the same way that Red, the guy, we're calling him Red.
He's going to be
He was
Red.
Red from that 70s show, but Red, the guy in the Kansas farm, literally the exact sentences, the exact way that he described being in that shipwreck that time and being rescued by they both have the exact same story, literally in the exact same phrasing. And Josh Duhamel even says, "I've already talked to you."
When does he say that?
In the boat, when he starts having those flashes of like it's 1930s guy, it's boat guy talking, Kansas guy old Kansas guy talking, boat guy talking, Kansas guy talking. Then it cuts to Josh Duhamel who says, "I've already talked to you about this."
Oh.
And then the boat and the guy they fished out of the sea goes, "We haven't spoken before." So I think they're implying that at some point he gets sent back to the past, like in the maybe 1860s. And then Ages is hiding on that farm in Kansas to then send him back to rescue him. I think might be what they're implying there. And that's why he's not in present day with the rest of them, because he got stranded in the past in some kind of a teleportation incident.
Okay, see, I mean, I don't dislike it. I think the show's not clever enough to do that.
Right.
I think they don't have enough planning and enough forethought for that kind of cool storytelling. And I think Sky Fox just killed that guy and gave his kid the stick. And that was the betrayal.
Maybe. It would also explain why Red had the coordinates in the drawings.
Well, Red had the coordinates in the drawings, I thought, because he went into the storm, never got there, so his visions never went away. So he's been crazy his whole life.
Okay.
And he knew the coordinates because he was on a boat. He was in the Navy.
Right.
So I thought he just was driven crazy by never getting there and constantly seeing the visions his whole life.
See, I think it's that guy.
You
I think it's the
that
same
guy?
dude.
I don't mind this theory, but I didn't feel it in the time. But I think it's a really cool idea that I don't think is right. And I think you're a better writer than the writers.
Interesting.
Because I think that was just for parallels so like you would believe Josh Duhamel.
They made the parallel too much exactly the same to be like, that's the same person. They're using the exact same words.
It's a cool idea. And you're right. They never mention that guy, which is weird. Because if Sky Fox did kill that guy, which is what I thought, you'd think they would be like, poor Conrad.
Yeah.
He didn't deserve it. Or they bring up Conrad at some point. This guy really doesn't exist. Huh? They don't find him till episode 6. They never mention him.
Yeah.
Just completely written out of the show in a weird way. But yeah, it's a cool theory. I hope it's right. It's neat if it is.
Huh.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was intended or not.
And we'll never find out because we're not going to watch Volume 2.
You might finish reading the comics.
I might finish the comic.
Yeah, because I know you've read some, but you haven't finished
Volume 1.
it. Okay. Yeah, so maybe in the comics this is something, but also it seems to divert from the comics quite a bit.
Diverted pretty hard from the comics.
Now, one other thing that I want to talk about this show, which is the fact that I feel like I've been tricked by a youth pastor into listening to the story of Jesus. Like, this honestly feels like cool youth pastor walks in and is like, the coolest superhero of all was? God. This is the Bible. Like, they made the Bible to the point that I'm really mad at this show because it honestly feels like Catholic Church propaganda. This is the Bible. They're telling Jesus' story.
I love that I didn't agree with you originally, and you off mic have already told me this theory and or what you're seeing, and I'm like, oh shit, it is the Bible.
And I get that
it's like Jesus meets Moses, but it's Bible.
Yeah, and I get that a lot of superhero stories are stories of, the one prophesized one, death and resurrection. There are definitely there are definitely biblical themes in a lot of superhero storytelling and storytelling as a whole. But this is more than biblical themes. This is the Bible.
He is led by his father.
Yeah.
By the visions of his father, the Holy Ghost.
The Holy Ghost of his father leads one crazy son to the promised land.
With his disciples.
Yeah, tests his faith by him and his disciples or apostles going through a series of tests of faith to follow the Holy Ghost of your father to the promised land, to the kingdom of heaven to be granted gifts. It is
one betrayer.
One betrayer. They actively make him look like Jesus in present day.
He does look like superhero Jesus. Like
Yes.
if you did have a church who was like, make us a cool Jesus, they would give you Josh Duhamel.
The family name is Samson, the biblical story of the family that grows their hair to show their connection to God, and they all have long hair.
The wife is Grace.
The wife is Grace. So we have Grace, we have the Holy Ghost. Their family name is Samson. Obviously, we have a Judas character, the betrayer among the group of apostles that go through everything together. Like they are his brother at one point even says, "You're acting like you're a Messiah." Like it feels like the church paid for this to be made, to be like, we need a cool 21st century Jesus story.
And you're very much backed up by a thing I did not know, which was that Mark Millar is very religious.
Yes. And acts like he's not, but is. Like when I just did like a quick Google search of like Mark Millar religious, and it was just like a lot of interviews with like thecatholictimes.net, like thegoodfaith.org. And a lot of religious publications are interested in this. And this has been a trend in Hollywood over the past like decade or two of these like backdoor Catholic funded projects. And I don't think this was actually funded by the church. Mm-hmm. I just think that this is very much to the level of preachy biblical story. But we've all seen the trailers for those movies. You go to a movie in theaters, the trailers come up, and there'll be one where it's like, this is a story about a girl who wants to be in a rock band. And she's like, hi, everybody, I just want to be a cool rocker. And I'm from Rock City, Missouri, and let's rock. And then a boy who has cancer. Oh, I'm dying. And then it's always that, and be like, and you're like, oh, okay, is this just a weird star-crossed lover movie? And then by the end of the movie, they're just like, but I don't believe in God. Like, it's the two characters are yelling at one another, and then the title of the movie is like one set of footprints in the sand or something, and you're like, oh, you're backdoor Jesus and me. This feels like the TV equivalent of those movies that try to sneak backdoor Jesus into you.
Now, I will say, though, like, when you lay it out, I can see it. But when you're watching it, like, I don't feel like I've been backdoor Jesus until you explain it. Like, I feel like I just watched a poorly plotted show. So, like, I'm not like, oh, I got to get to church. Like, they don't mention God, though, even if it is a God parable. Like, it's not trying to convert
I mean,
you.
he mentions Jesus several times, and they say grace, and they talk about the Lord.
I was actually about to bring that up, and it's the most jarring part. I think they only bring it up once, but it is so jarring to see people who have been given godlike powers still praying to God. I'm like, wait a minute, did Jesus give you the power? There's no reason to pray to Jesus unless Jesus gave you the powers.
Yeah.
Or else you would be like, thank you, wherever these powers came from. Holy shit, they're so cool. We love them. Love. They're great. So wonderful. To still be praying to Jesus is weird.
This is what makes it feel even more preachy to me. To be that you are telling a story that is a Jesus parable, but to lean full in and say he's Jesus would be blasphemous.
So you
still need
religious.
to write in that he prays to Jesus and does not acknowledge himself as Jesus, despite clearly being a Jesus parable. A quick shout out to Mr. Tails on Twitter, who hit me up while I was tweeting about Jupiter's Legacy and replied, at least they quickly got to my two favorite aspects of superhero content, business discussions and prayer. And that was within like one episode, like it had just come out. So I'm not the only one feeling it, but it is It is churchy as shit, and it is upsetting to me.
I think the best way you described it earlier was this is the movie that Shirley wanted Abed to make on Community.
Yeah.
And that was your best.
Thank you.
That was the best connection to me of like, oh, you want a sneaky church movie, but make it cool. And it is exactly what Shirley would have wanted Abed to make.
Yeah, Shirley's like, Jesus as a rapper? Like, she just wants a Jesus story that doesn't seem...
That the kids
that
will
the
like.
Kids are that the kids who are too young to know themes will see, buy into the themes, and then later not even realize that they were preached Jesus shit to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
And I'm not trying to shit on anyone's religion, but I don't like backdoor propaganda. Like,
mean,
if you are
honestly-
Catholic or Christian and that brings you happiness, good on you. Do your thing. Don't bring harm to anyone. But also don't, like, try to create weird propaganda conversion media, you know?
Because I was actually just about to say, I actually have no problem kind of with the ones you talked about before where it's very obviously Catholic backed movies when they're like, and there's a priest here and we talk about God even in the trailer.
Yeah.
Like it's very clear. But this one, it's definitely like, you're like, oh, wait. And there's like a code, which is like the commandments. Like there's, once you start seeing it, there's so many things. Like the do not kill. I'm like, oh, like the commandments, okay. Yeah, so there are definitely touches. And you're right. Like I absolutely have no problem of people of faith and wanting to believe in it, but I don't want to be tricked. It's like I don't want to be tricked into watching anything, not even things about religion.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to watch your sneaky advertise. Like we got mad the other day watching a YouTube video because it was just an advertisement, but they didn't mark it as that.
Right.
So we don't want to watch for like an actual product, not for a religion.
Yeah.
We don't want to be tricked into watching anything. Mm-hmm. Don't trick me.
Don't trick me. Don't trick me. And don't bring your Jesus at me. And then this Millar thing. This is the other thing I want to talk about. So we were like, at the time when I'm like, this is just a weird Jesus story. Is Mark Millar religious? And we started Googling that and being like, oh, okay, I guess he is. And this is part of now the Millar-verse, which is something that Netflix has gone all in on.
They bought all of his properties.
Just everything. And they're currently making 2, but I think they've greenlight 6 series or movies or Netflix originals.
Oh, and if you don't know, Mark Millar also made Kick-Ass and Kingsman. So he's known in the comic book and like movie and fun action world.
So he's a known property. But I'm like, what's his next thing for Netflix? The next thing for Netflix is actually just called American Jesus.
Is it this show?
And I think it's all part of the same universe is what they're trying to do, too. So I don't know what's going on there, but Netflix has gone all in on Mark Millar. And if this is your opening introduction to the Millar-verse, which is what they're calling it, I don't know if you attached your wagon to the wrong horse here.
It feels like it's going to be like when Universal wanted to make the Monsterverse. And they're like, The Mummy's the first one. We got 5 more movies cast and lined up. You're going to love them. And we're like, Jupiter's Legacy's real bad. Like, well, we bought 5 other Mark Millar properties, so you better like them. And we're like, we don't.
No.
This is not Kingsman or Kick-Ass, my man.
Oof. Netflix keeps doing this, and I think that losing Marvel stuff has sincerely broken them inside. Because I think it was off mic. We were talking to the hosts of I Hate It But I Love It, and we were talking with them about Netflix keeps kind of shooting for the stars, and they've said a couple of times the sentence, "This is going to be our Star Wars." And Netflix has said that on multiple occasions. They said that about, what was that Will Smith one? Blight. Before Blight came out, they were like, we're all in. This is our Star Wars. And it's like, no, it wasn't. And I feel like they keep going all in and really trying to like force a big overarching property as opposed to just making things and then whatever hits and pops, just going with that.
Like just Stranger Things it. Stranger Things wasn't all in. They weren't like Stranger Things is going to be our thing. We just loved Stranger Things. And now they've made 4 of them. I'm really surprised they haven't gone more in on Old Guard, which was the best thing they've made in years.
I would agree with that, yeah.
And was set up for a sequel within its own movie, but I've heard nothing about a sequel.
Uh-huh.
But set up for a sequel in the most satisfying way.
Yeah.
Like their first story was done. Netflix is kind of just throwing everything at the wall, but everything they're throwing at the wall is really expensive.
I think they even said like Project Power was going to be their X-Men.
Oh yeah, because they sent us a huge package for that show.
Yeah, like they were all in on it.
They sent us like a mailer full of like products, and we're like, oh, there's products for Project Power?
Yeah.
And then that movie didn't do anything. It was fine, but it wasn't a new big property. I think the one with Anthony Mackie recently, forget what that was called. He was a robot.
Oh, Under the Wire or
Outside the Wire?
Outside the Wire, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, they keep really trying to make hits, and we're like, they're fine.
Yeah.
None of these are popping off.
But you can't artificially inflate that.
You can't
and create
just artificially make a Star War.
Yeah. It feels like a lot of, and it's been maybe a decade since this happened, but those movies that, there were a lot of movies like a decade ago that were just like, we're going to be 6 movies. And then no one likes like Maze Runner or something where it's like.
Maze Runner was 3 movies.
Maze Runner actually got 3.
Yeah.
Fuck me. I did not expect that.
I mean, there was Divergent though. Divergent was weird because they got like 2 theater and then 1 straight to DVD,
Right.
which was weird for the time.
It was a lot of YA proproperties.
It was a lot of
where I
YA
think it was like
properties.
Twilight and Hunger Games. And then everyone was like, okay,
Who's got a book?
Alita Battle Angel is going to be our Twilight. And everyone's like, what the fuck is happening? No, it's not. So like, I think there were a lot of desperate plays like that.
I will say Maze Runner made less money each time.
Right. Okay.
So
Okay.
it was a flailing property, I believe. But yeah, you're totally right.
A lot of flails from Netflix here of trying to build a universe, if you will.
I need to get into just some of the terrible plotting though. Like we've talked about the flashbacks a lot. I need to get in some present day plotting.
Sure.
Just things that are just like basic script writing. The blue drug was nothing, and it's infuriating to me.
It was just regular drug.
Like, this blue drug is set up, so Hutch fails on some kind of heist, and he's like, to make up for it, you have to do an even more dangerous heist, and you have to steal this thing, and we're not going to tell you what it is.
This
We're like,
MacGuffin.
"Ooh, a MacGuffin. You have to steal it, so it's going to be something important." He loses it. Chloe finds it. It's a bag of, I guess, ended up being drugs. It looked like cleaning crystals. It looked like it could have been anything.
She snorted it like it was regular cocaine, and it seemed to have the effect of cocaine.
But she didn't recognize it. She didn't know what it was. She just said, I found some stuff. It made like a jingly elf sound, like a fairy sound every time you huffed it. Like it went like ding, ding, ding. Like there was a dingly-lingy sound. Like I thought this was, and then she got all her superhero friends to do it. I was like, oh, okay, this is either gonna kill or overpower all of these superheroes or something. Like this drug is important. And then she just snorts it all in one night. And she's dating Hutch. And it's over.
If that's the end of that story.
This fucking Chekhov's gun never went off.
No, it just went right up her nose.
And she just shot herself with that gun, but she was fine. I was infuriated. It was the only relevant thing Chloe was going to bring to this show was that she had whatever this blue dust was. And she took it, and she's the only one who took it. And it didn't mean anything. It was just so she could meet Hutch. A guy she already knew.
She already... yeah.
She already knew him. That's the kid from the flashback in the very first scene.
Yeah, it goes nowhere. It's nothing. I thought the same thing, that it was going to be something that like robs superheroes of their powers or makes you all amped up or juiced up. It's just regular drugs.
It's just regular drugs that
Generic
she didn't
drugs.
recognize. And there's no consequences of her stealing and taking them.
Yeah.
Just how is that any plotting on the board? Like when you have your note cards on the board, that's not how a show is plotted.
No, it's unless they're really building it up to something, but also she shared it with everyone at this huge party. So if it was going to do a thing, there would be like 100 people doing a thing. So I don't know what that's about either.
This brings me to another question I have. And you won't have an answer, but I'm still going to throw it out there because I'm mad about the question. Where are all these other heroes coming from? And villains?
I actually was thinking the same thing. No, I'm fully with you. Normally, this is the type of bullshit where I'm like, just let it go, Diana. I'm fully with you.
Because everyone who's introduced as a child of one of the original 6, you're like, okay, you pass on your powers when you have kids. Totally reasonable. But then there's dozens of other heroes and villains. Like, did you all go to the island? Like, where did more powers come from?
Yeah, there's no explanation for why there's more powers.
No. Is it the drug thing? It's not. Like, Why? Where is anyone else getting powers? This was supposed to be a very special, unique thing
To be
that
like,
you guys got. So I think you could fix the economy.
Yeah.
Is I think why you got superpowers.
yeah, Space Jesus and his 5 apostles were supposed to be the only ones.
Yeah, and like your kids, sure.
Yeah.
But there's dozens of them. Like 3 of them die in that battle. None of them were the kids of people we know.
How did Black Star become Black Star?
Who's
A
Black
really
Star?
cool looking character who I enjoy the design of and think is fucking awesome.
I
but
actually think Black Star's pretty cool too. The way he's just always
Yeah.
reading and he's kind of like if Beast was a bad guy.
yeah, a little bit.
Like a real intellectual.
yeah,
like,
yeah, somewhere in between Beast and Darkseid, I think. Yeah,
I don't mind Black Star at all.
Yeah, I
It's
like
fun.
Black Star. But how? How is Black Star?
How is Black Star? What are you? Are you an alien? Like what's going on? I'm so mad about the other heroes.
Yeah, why is there an Age of Heroes? And it undermines the whole theme of this, or I think purpose of the show, and its fucking title is that it's called Jupiter's Legacy, and it's supposed to be about the legacy. And even like the description of the show, the synopsis of the show that the showrunners wrote, it's on Netflix, it's on IMDb, how they describe it is that it is a show about heroes from the 30s and now how their children affect the world today. Their children are barely significant in this show whatsoever. The show's entirely about the old heroes. This is all about an aging Justice League. This is not about the children of the Justice League. They have kids, yes, but that is an insignificant part of the plot. Brandon, whatever his name is, kills a clone of Black Star, and that is somewhat of an inciting incident for a conversation that the adults have. Like
Brandon's never involved.
none of the kids are. The kids are fucking useless and insignificant. This is not Jupiter's Legacy. This is just Jupiter.
It's just Jupiter. Now, I wonder maybe, we never see George. He's out there somewhere. I wonder if George is just like fucking going to sperm banks, being like, I'm making more superheroes. He's just popping kids off all around the world.
Just dropping loads everywhere and fucking leaving that to do it, huh?
It's the only thing I can think of where all these heroes came from.
Okay, I'm with you.
Apparently you can clone Black Star, though.
But you can clone Black Star.
And then that brings me to my least favorite part of this is the very dumb reveal that Walt's the bad guy.
Right.
Because, hey, mind powers guy, how did you clone Black Star?
Yeah, that's
You
a great
don't-
point. He doesn't have that power.
Even the guy that you introduced, Barnabas, who can control reality, specifically says he can't make organic matter. So he didn't clone Black Star for you.
Right.
You didn't clone Black Star because you're a mind boy.
Yeah.
How did you clone what seems to be a very, very powerful supervillain?
Because he did it.
He did it. And then he's the one who made this clone of Black Star. And then he nearly genuinely dies
Yeah.
reading the clone's mind? And
He almost genuinely dies twice. He almost dies the first time fighting the clone as well.
Yes, he does.
He did not orchestrate a scenario where he was like busy doing another thing and couldn't fight the clone. He genuinely almost dies fighting the clone.
He genuinely almost dies fighting the clone. And then he goes into the clone's mind, and while he's alone, tries to frame George for doing it when no one else is in there?
No one else can go in minds. So he did it for no one.
He's alone in there, and he's like, oh, look, it was George, and nobody's there.
Nobody's there. And even the first time that he goes into the mind of the clone in the fight. He goes into the mind of the clone. He's like, what is going on? No one's seeing this.
No one.
And it's just lies aren't twists. To steal a classic I hi bye lie. I hate it, but I love it. Lies aren't twists. And this is just a lie because we are getting the story from this character's perspective. And he's lying to himself alone in a mindscape.
Yeah, you don't create a lie when you're by yourself.
Yeah, for the sake of us, the audience, as if he knows us, the audience, will be watching him alone in a mindscape. It's just a lie. Lies aren't twists.
And like, he didn't want to bring his daughter in, but if his daughter wasn't there, I think he would have genuinely died within his own trap.
He would have.
He'd just be dead.
He's an idiot.
I'm not too worried about this guy. He's
Best,
a real moron.
The only the only in-canon thing that makes sense is that he's an idiot. That is the best explanation, if you're trying to come up with a logical explanation of what happened, is that he's a complete fucking moron. And he almost killed himself twice.
Yeah, that seems to be where we're at on Walt's villainous scheme. I created a supervillain that I can't control and nearly killed me twice. Schemes.
What? How?
Equals
Why?
Profits?
What? How?
What is any of it? Like, was Black Star supposed to kill the rest of the Union or something? Like,
And if he was, you would need to not be there. You would need to not be there.
you would need to have a reason that you were a survivor.
And in the second instance, the reason that he is the alibi he comes up with is I got murdered elsewhere. Like, if his daughter wasn't there to save him, his alibi would have been I couldn't have released Black Star. I'm already dead. Would have been his alibi.
We probably wouldn't have looked in his direction.
And you certainly would not have. No one would, because that's nonsense.
And the show would just be over because now the main villain would be gone.
Lies aren't twists.
Lies aren't twists.
I hate it so much. I fully agree with you on that. I think the other thing that is really boring and drives me nuts about the plot or the character of this show is Chloe as a whole. Oh. It's so boring. And so many stories have tried to do this. And I get it, but no one cares. It's this story of like, it's actually hard to have everything as well. No one gives one flying fuck. It's the most boring. The spoiled kid story is the most boring story ever told. And I get there is a humanity to it, that there are actual difficulties and psychological troubles that come along with I'm a child celebrity, or, I'm the child of a rich kid and I've never had to work. Like, there are psychological trauma and issues that come along with that.
I can never trust anyone because everyone wants something from me. That is definitely a traumatic event.
That actually exists, and that 99.999999% of the globe cannot relate to and does not give one flying fuck about. The, like, my daddy took care of me for everything storyline has
now
been done
I'm a
to
model.
death. I'm a model, but I've never had to work, and I'm the most powerful person, and I'm a model, and I'm rich, and I've had a home and a spaceship and superpowers, and I can't die, and I have a drug problem, but everyone has to put up with it because I'm special. But my daddy was nice to me. Do you realize how, like, her whole problem is that her daddy was too nice to her?
Yeah, like he expected a lot from her and then just let her do her own thing later.
He was both too controlling and was very open and allowing her to do whatever she wanted.
Because he could definitely just not let her do these things.
Yes.
But he is a fan of free will and his own opinions.
Uh-huh.
And he wants to put those opinions on you, but he's like, free will though. I like that. I'm a big fan of we can't be leaders. Free will. So he's very complicated. And there's almost something interesting about Chloe that they never touch on, that I do actually have a mild interest in, which is if you're born with superpowers, are you obligated to be a superhero?
Right.
That I actually think is very interesting. Like even if they're not like an X-Men like curse, if you're just like, I just want to be like a secretary. I just want to be a lawyer. I do not want to use these powers. That's not really where she's coming from. But all of her friends have powers, and they are all superheroes. And they look down on her for not using her powers. And that's actually something I think is interesting, but not really what they're exploring in this, because it really feels like she's just not a superhero as a rebellion against her dad.
Yeah.
Not because she's like non-violent or she just has other interests, because she doesn't seem to like modeling very much. It's just easy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of cocaine.
She likes easy money and cocaine. Yeah.
So she's just a boring, awful character. Hutch deserves better.
Yeah.
Please get Hutch a better love interest. I know they won't because they're together in the comics, but yeah, she is miserable to watch and got so much screen time, and you feel no sympathy for her, especially because she's decided not to be a hero. She's like, I don't want to be a hero. I'm not going to use my powers. But then she uses her powers to fight the guy who sleeps with her, even though he just was like kind of a jerk. She punches that guy through a wall.
Yeah.
Very violent. She throws a car at her manager.
Who's a normal human.
Because she asked her to model like her mom.
Yeah.
Like fully clothed, just like do the pose your mom did. And she threw a car at this lady. Like she uses her powers willy-nilly. She intimidates people. She's a total jerk. She's an asshole.
She's broke, not paying rent, and still has the best apartment in the city because she threatens the landlord. Like, she is literally she is holding people ransom and threatening people's lives in order to lead a spoiled life. It's a miserable character that is unrelatable and isn't portrayed as the villain. Like, a character this unrelatable should be a pure, unadulterated, uncontrollable villain in every regard.
Yeah, but she's portrayed as just misunderstood, and we should feel sympathy for her. And I'm like, absolutely not.
No,
not in any way. Brandon turned out fine. You guys were raised the same. What's wrong with you, girl?
Yeah, Brandon turned out fine-ish. Like, he has struggles and things that he needs to deal with, but he's not a caricature. Like, he's not so insane as you are.
I'm not worried about Brandon. I don't mind when Brandon's on screen. When Chloe's on screen, I'm just like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah. And no one seems to treat her like she is. Like, her character is surrounded by people who do not act like rational living beings in any way. Like, her manager in that photo shoot, where her manager is like mean and shitty to her in person, and she's a powder keg. Like, this is the equivalent of, like, if you ran into a drug addict in an alleyway who was holding 9 guns and an atomic bomb. Like, this woman is angry and on some kind of blue crystal meth magic drug that we don't even know what it is. And her manager's like, listen, you stupid bitch. Why don't you do what you're supposed to do and take your dumb money for dumb models like you fucking idiot? I'm like, you're a human woman.
She's going to murder you.
That is, and it's just driving forward nonsense plot to be like, everyone in this room would be terrified, shaking, sweating, and pissing themselves right now because you are a drug addict with the most powerful weapon in the world. And you are mad at everyone in this room, and you don't want to be here. Everyone should act scared. So she's just filled and surrounded by nonsense people who don't act or understand what's happening in the story at all.
Yeah, it is weird that her parents aren't more like, you need to get clean because you're going to hurt someone.
Yeah.
Because their powers are like Superman level. Like, you can just hurt people so easily. Like, when you fly into the air, the ground cracks. Like, you punched a guy through a wall who, like, just asked you for a job reference.
Yeah.
You're gonna kill someone any second now, and you definitely need to be watched more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people should be scared of you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, I would be scared. I'm scared of people who are on drugs without superpowers.
Yeah.
I'm like, you don't know what they're gonna do. Not everyone on drugs, but, like,
Yeah.
people who are fully tweaked out.
Yeah. When you've lost the concept of reality, like when you're so high you don't know your own strength or what you're doing, like, that's a scary thing. And she is a person who's always on the cusp of, like, taking a building down. And she also doesn't seem to be someone who would care. Either way, yeah, she, like, that dude who was like, I can take a punch, was enough for her to punch him to the next city. Like, he could for sure be dead, and by all intents and purposes, could be. All he said was, I can take a punch, and she punched him through a wall and into the distance. She threatened to kill her landlord. She threatened to kill a landlord to get free property.
That guy left with fear. He was the only one who seemed to fear her.
Yeah, he actually acted like he should in that scenario. And she was so mad at the time guy because she's like, you're using me for a job reference. But you live in a world of users. You're all using people. You are using your boyfriend for your weird crystal meth. Like, you are using people for drugs. Like, I'm not saying that, like, using a lover for a job reference is a good thing to do, but you're in that world of everyone's using someone. Like, none of your friends are sincere friends. You aren't anyone's sincere friend.
Yeah, what promises did that guy give you that he wasn't using you for a job reference?
Yeah.
And of all the things to be used for, job reference is pretty light.
Exactly.
Like, could you tell your dad that my powers are cool?
Yeah.
It's a pretty light one.
Yeah, you were using...
Didn't want money, didn't want drugs, didn't want a photo shoot. He's like, I'd like a job.
You were using him for company, drugs, escapism, and to fuck up your friend's party. Like, you're also... Yeah,
he stopped time and you stole their alcohol. Yeah, you're... this is like a Reddit thread where everybody sucks here.
Yeah, this is an Am I the Asshole for sure.
And yeah, then just I think like, oh, there's so many more plot things I want to get to. I'm gonna have to pick my favorite.
Let's go rapid fire. Hit me with a couple.
Hit me with a couple. Found it absolutely hilarious when they got their powers on the island, and like the Holy Spirit, whoever's talking to them, is like, "You guys did so good. You went through so many obstacles, and you never lost faith." And I'm laughing my ass off because they tried to leave immediately, and the island wouldn't let them.
Yeah, they lost faith so many times. So many times.
They saw the desert, and 5 out of 6 of them went, nope, and tried to turn around, and they literally couldn't leave because trees popped up in their path.
Yeah.
And then the Holy Ghost was like, you guys were so strong the whole time.
Even before that, they tried to turn around and leave, but like the storm is a living storm that won't let you.
It makes you stay.
Yeah, yeah. Once you get within a few feet of this, it doesn't let you leave.
Yeah, it's like if I was locked in a prison cell and then the warden came and was like, good work, you survived, you made it through. I'm like, the door was locked.
Leave. Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to leave. Fucking hilarious.
And also the Holy Ghost gave them their costumes, which is what I find funny, that they didn't pick out their costumes, that these costumes are also a gift from God.
It is, but I like to think it's one of those, like, we read your mind and based it on your personalities and you're going to love it costumes. Because no one seemed to dislike their costume.
Yeah, I agree, no one seems to dislike it. But it also implies that no one's personality changes over time.
Because it's still the same costume.
Yeah, because if it's influenced by your personality, I get it, that's one thing. But you are the exact same person, both intellectually and in terms of fashion and style, in the year 2021 as you were in 1930. No, you are not.
No, you would change a little.
You've made some updates.
Mm-hmm. Although only like 2 of them still have the same outfits. Oh no, Brainwaves is the same.
Brainwaves is
so
the same?
3.
Yeah.
3 out of 6. Because the flare's not there anymore. What did I also want to talk about?
Yeah.
Their code. Okay,
Yeah.
rapid fire?
Yeah.
The code. You cannot kill people. We don't associate with killers. This is my daughter, Rico. She's an assassin. And we're not going to arrest her. And we're going to pay her $1 million. You fucking hypocrites.
That was another one where it was like, the show just doesn't care. You just don't care.
Oh, you got a no-killing thing? Do you arrest assassins, though? Do you send them to jail?
You hired them.
You didn't hire her to assassin, but you still paid $1 million to a known assassin who was currently assassinating when you found her.
Yeah.
This was the worst.
Yeah. And I'm not against that in principle, because that's a classic comic book thing, the villain team up, the like, we need to stop a greater villain, so we invited a villain to come stop this. Classic comic book thing. But you can't do that when also the entire theme of your show is, am I okay with this man being my son when he killed in self-defense once? And then you're like, B plot, let's pay millions to this assassin. You can't do those in conjunction with one another.
Yeah, Brandon should have stormed into that room and been like, are you shitting me?
Yeah.
The assassin's here? And we're all like, oh, please rejoin the union. We miss you, Rico. And everyone's shitting on me for killing a dude on self-defense, which comes to my last rapid-fire point of how the fuck did he even kill Black Star?
Right.
It didn't make any sense. Your parents are stronger than you, and they punched him a bunch. And nothing happened. Mm-hmm. You had already punched him a bunch, and nothing happened. And then you punched him with the same punch, and he died instantly.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess maybe they were pulling their punches because they're not trying to kill.
There's got to be a knockout punch in between there.
Yeah, there really should be. There very much should be.
It didn't make any sense. It felt like if I tased someone 6 times, and they kept coming at me, and I'm like, well, I'll try to taser you 1/7 more time, and their head exploded.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I guess I killed you, but I don't really feel like it's on me. Something happened here.
Something else went wrong.
I thought that was going to be the plot of the show. I thought the show was going to be, oh no, Brandon's more powerful than his dad now, or like something just happened to Brandon. But they were just like, no, he's just regular that strong, and the other punches did nothing.
And that one happened and they didn't even set it up that like Brainwave framed him, like there was some kind of like a concussive blast, or like it was set up to kill the clone to make Brendan look like, to draw them, to rip them apart or whatever.
And it was such a complete act of self-defense and accident. Like 3 people are dead. He's about to go nuclear and kill thousands. It wasn't like you kept punching him and just didn't stop and you were angry about your friends dying. It was one punch, no nuclear reaction. It's pretty defensible.
Yeah. Yeah. And It is really weird that like this character, the Utopian, is so, and I just want to scream at the TV, and at times this Utopian is so like, we need to follow the law and we're not murderers. Like, self-defense is a thing. Like, if someone's about to set off an atomic bomb in front of you, you are allowed to do that legally. And it's not even like, I get that maybe it's a moral gray area and it's a conversation worth having. Like, you have a debrief afterwards to be like, was there anything else you could have done?
That's a conversation you can have. You do a little investigation in the end, you see if there's repercussions. Definitely. But to instantly be like, yeah, I know 3 of our friends are dead and I was about to die. But Brandon,
you did a
went
murder.
too
You
far.
should have thought of another way. And even Brandon's like, what other way would I have done?
No
and it's
one
like,
has anything else.
I don't have any ideas or follow up to this conversation at all, son.
I think his dad said he should have punched him into the sun or something, or into space.
Right.
But I'm like, he can fly. Just come back.
Yeah. I don't know. It's so wild that this is also the breaking point of the universe as well, of like, all of the superheroes act like they've never heard of the concept of death before.
Yeah.
Like, it's as if this is existing in what was the Torchwood story?
Miracle Day.
Miracle Day. Like, they're acting like this exists in Miracle Day, where it's like no one can die, and this was the first time someone died ever, and they're like, holy shit, we've never thought of it before. But it's like, other humans kill. Like, you're familiar with the concept of, I'm not even saying corporal punishment, but self-defense, manslaughter, like the other times when someone dies. Like, you've seen that happen in life over the past 100 years. Brandon's not the first to do it ever. So why are we all acting like he's the first person who's thought of ending a life?
Who, I don't even think he thought of it.
And he
It didn't seem like he was like, gotta kill Black Star. He was just, gotta punch this guy real hard, and oops, I killed him.
Done.
But it was the complete lack of conversation and the lack of it not being an extreme act.
Yeah.
Like, it was extreme, but it wasn't. Like, he didn't lose control.
It's not enough to test the whole moral premise of the show. The moral premise of the show is we need to be better than humanity's systems while not affecting them. So we can't force them to live our way, but we need to be so good that we barely affect the day-to-day life of the powerless, other than like balancing the scales for good. We don't affect their moral systems. It's not enough to challenge that. Accidents are not enough to challenge the theme of the show.
Yeah, it's not like, it's not like they took Lex Luthor on TV and snapped his neck by choice, like, with no self-defense going on. Yeah, it wasn't a murder.
It's just not enough.
It's just not enough.
The show has nothing to say.
Show has nothing to say.
Nothing to say.
I have nothing else to say.
Yeah,
about
we had a lot to say. More than the show, I would say.
I think we did.
I think we did have more to say than
you
the
had
show.
fun ideas with Red being a time traveler, maybe. I am curious.
If that's the intention. Yeah, keep reading those comics. You let me know. I'm going to let you summarize it for me. All right, well, let's go in for the close where we ask the final question of what would you change? So now that we've discussed everything we discussed, what would you change about the show if you could change anything? But before we do ask that final question, we need to ask you, our listeners, if you haven't already, if you have, you can hit that skip forward 30-second button.
Yep.
If you haven't, don't hit that button. Please follow, subscribe, rate, review on whatever podcast app you use, on Apple Podcast or whatever it is that you're doing. Hitting that follow button or that subscribe button, depending on what it is that you use, it helps us move up the charts. It helps us get seen by new people. It helps guarantee that you get the episode every week and you don't have to search for it or check our social media or the website or whatever. And if you're listening to this through a browser or you've downloaded it directly, we appreciate you. We appreciate you listening. Even if you don't normally use an app, open an app, hit subscribe. Maybe you'll start using that to listen to your podcast in the future. Maybe you don't, but that still counts as a number for us. And then while you're there, rate and review, which makes it more likely that new listeners will actually hit download as well and join the party.
Join the party. Maybe you'll find a fun new app, Apple Podcasts or Podcast Addict for an Android phone is very good ones that you can review on, and we would appreciate it so very much.
That's right. And if you want to get cool bonuses as well. Bonuses. Check us out over on Patreon, which is a monthly subscription service where you can subscribe to us and get lots of cool extras. extras for doing it. And at the Patreon system, you can subscribe monthly. You can do as little as $1 a month, $5 a month, $10, however much you can afford. You get different bonuses depending on what your subscription level is. You can sign up at the yearly level if you prefer to do yearly instead of monthly. You can also cancel or change your prescription level on a month-to-month basis or yearly basis depending on what you signed up for. So it's easy, it's customizable, and at the hero level patron, you get a bonus episode of this podcast every single month that's exclusive to our Patreon page.
Every single month, full-length episode, no ads on a thing we don't do on the regular podcast. It's tons of talking superheroes for you, and you get all the old stuff as soon as you sign up.
Absolutely.
And
Full
by
back
old
catalog.
stuff, we mean like good stuff.
Good stuff, and 60+ episodes, I think.
It's a
So
lot.
there's a lot over there on our Patreon page. And even if you don't subscribe at that level, you can get stuff like our webcomic a day early, exclusive drafts of our writing process, early access to the Patreon games night on Twitch. So lots of cool features. Or you could just not use the features and still just help support this network and keep the lights on and the equipment going and things sounding good and working smooth.
You do you.
You do you. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. That's patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. To all of our current patrons, thank you. We appreciate you. And to any possible future patrons, if it's in the budget, we love and appreciate you. If it's not, we understand that as well. You take care of yourself first, but if you have it, check it out, patreon.com/fromsuperheroes.
So much love.
A lot of love. And now let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? Diana, what would you change?
There's so many problems that I've taken a very small change that I think would have greatly increased my enjoyment. So right off the top, I actually didn't think I liked this, but I think I need it. Right off the top, episode 1, you got a fake documentary playing on a TV.
Okay.
And we're going to tell you who all the characters are, and we're going to give you the backstory of the world, and we're going to let you feel what the world's like right now. There's heroes. This is where these heroes came from. These are who these heroes are. This is Sky Fox. He betrayed us 10 years ago or whenever Sky Fox betrayed us. And we're going to just figure out what the tone is and who everyone is, because so many characters were introduced. I didn't know why there were so many heroes, even though I knew a little bit about the comics. I'm like, where do these people come from? I was so confused, and I just need off the top to be like, this is this person. Here they got their powers. This is how the world's changed since they got their powers. This is what the world was like in the 1920s. This is how super strength changed the economy, I guess. Seems dumb. I don't think it would do anything. But yeah, I mean, honestly, that's my biggest change. An opening little fake documentary in an episode that maybe Chloe's watching and she's mad about it because she hates her family, or Brandon's watching because he's trying to live up to being in the documentary. Something like that. Something is going on to just instantly give you more of a vibe of what is happening. Let's talk about the code. We'll cover it all. We still need the flashbacks to because they won't know how they got their powers. They probably haven't told anyone about the special island where Jesus lives.
Space Jesus.
Space Jesus. But yeah, I think just a little sum up at the beginning would have really helped to just be able to watch it and not be like, it feels like work.
It does feel like work.
It does feel like work. So that's my big change. Putting a little fake documentary at the beginning.
I think I can piggyback off of that and say that one thing that I would change is that other than the 6 and their children, there are no other superpowered people at all. And it would make it so much easier to track, and is part of the reason why I like the flashbacks. I've mentioned earlier many of the other reasons that I like the flashbacks. But there are no unnecessary characters in the flashbacks. There's no fat.
The flashbacks, 6 of them, and 1 or 2 other people.
And you get an idea for their personalities, how they interact with one another, who they are as people. The flashbacks are a character-based story. And if this show was 6 people and their kids, if it was about Jupiter's legacy, it was about 6 people, all of whom have a kid, how does that generational handoff work or not work? But instead, there's an Iron Fist dude who gets killed randomly. There's Black Star. There's a magician now. We live in a world with actual magic. So they've gone full-on Justice League Unlimited. Everything is happening. It is as rich as DC or Marvel. There's space shit. There's magic shit. There's interdimensional shit. When the core of this, the entire pitch of this show is the original 6 people with powers deal with their kids. Done. That's the show. So and then you could do a documentary at the beginning to be like, here's who the 6 are that first brought powers into the world. And it's easier to track. And it's a more personal connection then to be like, I know everyone.
I mostly agree with that. I think they need someone to fight still.
I mean, then it would be Sky Fox, the betrayer, and the son of Sky Fox as well.
Are villains maybe in this, because they're pretty like. I'm getting the impression George didn't do anything too evil, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
I think George maybe just disagreed with the code a little.
I think he might have been right, is where they're going with this. Yeah.
That's the impression I'm getting. But yeah, just like 1 evil one, 5 good ones.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can get behind that. There's definitely too much too soon in terms of superheroes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, way too much going on. But I would to piggyback off yours, I would do that of just the core 6 and their kids. And then I would also like the first I would like all the flashback stuff up front. I don't need the back and forth. If we did all the flashback stuff up front, and I think as it is, that would be maybe 3 episodes of flashback stuff. Edit it down to like 2 episodes of flashback stuff. A tight 2 episodes in the 30s. We've got our powers cut to present day. And then at that point, I know who the 6 are. And now I'm ready to get to know who their kids are. And if we don't have a million other superheroes, it's like, I know who these 6 are. I know how they interact. I know George and the brother don't get along. I know now, and now he's missing. Now I want to know what the mystery of him missing is. All of it up front, 2 episodes of flashback. Boom, we know the characters. Cut to the kids. That's a show.
I can get behind that because definitely, if we get to know them all in the flashbacks originally, it's going to mean a lot more in the present day when they're struggling.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's it.
I think we
fixed it pretty good.
We made it better.
We definitely made it better.
We made it better.
Yeah. There's bones here. There's some good bones underneath this.
There's some bones and bones.
There is bones.
There's bones.
All right, well, that's going to be it for this week. Next week, we are going to be back. You thought we had escaped Zack Snyder. We have not. He's back, baby.
I can't believe we're doing more Zack
You get away from Zack Snyder for a minute, and he pulls you back in. So we are building up to the release of his Netflix original, Army of the Dead. So in anticipation and build up to that, next week we are doing Dawn of the Dead, the remake of Dawn of the Dead that was directed by Zack Snyder. So we're doing Dawn of the Dead remake next week.
Every time you think you're out, Zack Snyder pulls you back in.
Right back in. Well, that's going to be it for us. In the meantime, if you want to get a hold of us, you can reach me on Twitter at Ivimey, Ivimey.
You can reach me at Words of Diana.
And you can reach both of us at From Superheroes, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.